the only changes I see myself making is this line here, that little ripple, is just touching on the tangent on this lady's head. And usually you try to avoid things touching at a tangent because they tend to draw the eye. And to some extent even this line here, the top of this hat. So I'll adjust those just a little bit. For the drawing itself, I'm going to bring camera down so you as close as, because we don't need to see my palette while I'm drawing. Some of the marks are going to be faint because I don't, when you're drawing figures like this, you'll end up making some adjustments. And the position's pretty right. I'm going to start by drawing the lady first, and I don't want her head right in the middle, so I'm going to move her a little bit to the right, and I'm going to start with her head, and all I'm going to do is draw an oval, and that gives me maybe a bit bigger like that, something to measure by, because I first want to get the rough dimensions for this lady here. And the way you do that is you measure from the top of the head to the bottom of the head, and then you go there's one head, two heads, three heads, and just a little bit more than 3.5 heads from top to bottom. So if that's my head, and this is what's important, you go 1, 2, 3, 3.5, somewhere there. Then we sort of lightly draw in the back. And again, the other thing to check on is the angle. See the angle of the back. So you can put your pencil there, transfer it across, and it gives you an idea that it's going to come somewhere like that. And then these, you're not going to see a lot of these lines just yet, but they'll start to come in. At the moment I'm not pressing very hard at all. And then her arm is at that angle, so it's going to come in somewhere like that. And then the elbow, this arm is fairly straight, so there's the arm, there's the forearm and the top of the arm. So once I've got this rough dimension, then I'm going to go back to the head and let's draw a little bit more detail on the head. She's got hair sticking out here. Head's actually a little bit, and a head, we haven't done portraiture for a long time. Basically from the bottom of the chin to the top of the head is roughly from the nose to the back of the head. Okay, so while I drew an oval there, it's really more of a circular shape with a head fitting in that circular shape. So I just look at the shapes, and to me figures, I just treat them as shapes. Okay, try not to think of them as people, because you end up getting very complex and trying to draw what you think you should see rather than what you're actually seeing. So head comes down here. She's got sunglasses, which make life a lot easier. And then her nose just peeks out from under that. She's talking to the kids. Her mouth is open. Well, I'm not going to leave it open. I'm just going to shut it a bit. And just give her a little chin. And now I have to make an adjustment, so you can see why I haven't drawn this pressed very hard. I'll bring this down a little bit more. That's about as far as it'll go. And she's got this fancy belt here. It's better. Makes the nose a bit smaller. When you're drawing figures like this, you really need a pencil with quite a sharp point on it. That'll do. And now I look at these sort of shapes. So there's the hair and there's the forehead, and it's a fairly, if you look at here, I've drawn this too wide, so I need to bring it down a little bit. And I think her chin is still a bit too high. And again, we're not doing a portrait of this lady, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be too, it doesn't have to look like her, it just has to look like a person without something really wrong with them. There we go. And now I'm just drawing what I see and making it a bit bigger than the photo, because I'm painting almost to 1.5 times the scale. Elbow comes to here, forearm comes down here. Don't try to draw all the fingers in, but now an interesting shape. See in here, this little, that's called a negative shape, and you can use that when you're drawing to help draw. And sometimes it's easier to see a negative shape than a positive shape. So that shape there is not too dissimilar to what I've drawn in there, so that will do. And then her skirt comes down here, then here. Belt. And then there's a little gap just underneath there. That's also important. And I might bring this down a little bit more. I'll just get the leg in right. Just drawing in the highlight where the sun's hitting the toes, and then a bit of some shadow under here. A lot of this is in shadow. And then there's the other foot just there. Put some swirls in the skirt. And that's all right. I'm going to make her forehead a bit smaller. It's better. That's right. And then last thing before we wrap the figure up, we've got the arm behind this one here, so you can just see a bit of the elbow there, and then this arm comes down and at the forearm, this muscle at the front. I think I've thinned her down a little bit, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to bring this up a bit. Now I can draw, now that I've drawn this leg in, I can put the hand, and all I can see is a bit of this finger and these fingers coming out there. And this hand you can't see very much because there's sand in front of her. I'll leave these marks fairly strong at the moment, but I will lighten them a bit before I start painting. So there's our one figure, and now we're going to put the rest of the drawing together, but we'll use this figure as a reference to everything else. So I'm just going to make a small adjustment there. I don't like that. There we go. Okay, so we'll start with this. I'm assuming it's a girl, and we'll start with her hat. And if we look at where it is, it's just touching this lady's, her mother's forehead. Well, I'm going to put a little gap there, just so it's not quite touching on a tangent. And then I'll just start with the hat. And the bottom of the hat, so it's all measuring, right? Bottom of the hat comes across to the, the first third of the bicep somewhere here. And it's on a bit of an angle. Again, and then hat sticks out here, and it comes back here. And then we just draw, we've got the shoulder, and we can look at this negative, there's another negative shape in here. I have to make some adjustment because I've moved the hat in that direction a little bit. And it's a relatively simple shape, but the trick's to get the angles right. And her bottom is touching the sand closer to us, hence it's lower down than her mum's hand. So she's going to be sitting somewhere like that. You can just see her arm through here. But you can only see that much of the arm, you can't see too much. Some creases, there's a bit of a shadow here. You can see a little bit of this arm sticking out here. Bit of a shadow in there. You can't see this foot. And then here we've got this foot here. So it's really, and that foot is pretty much in line. You can just see a little bit sticking out here. And if we look at where the foot is just sticking out just past this arm, so in fact that tells me this arm could be at a slightly different angle. I'll make this stick out here a bit more. And then that foot's sitting right. You can't see this other foot. Okay, let me just darken some of this so you can see it a bit better. Comes down a bit more. And there's some shadow back here across the ground. Then we're going to now paint this sand hill. And it comes through somewhere like that. And it's got a shadow. This girl's got a shadow, mum's got a shadow. All these, the shadow will tie all of these things together. This figure here. Again, look at the top of the hat. We drew a line across. It's sort of hitting this part here of her mother's head. So it's somewhere along there. And if this is the peak, it's just the inside of that peak in there. Add a little bit for scaling, and that will be where her hat will start. Again, don't press very hard at the start because you're going to have to make adjustments. Now, this is probably the trickiest part of this painting, this drawing. And you're not going to be able to, this again, we're not trying to do a portrait here. It's just got to look like a little girl. Her hair comes down here. And then the shoulder, where the shoulder meets the hair, it's pretty much in line with the mouth, somewhere there. Might end up making this hat just a bit smaller. That's a soft edge there. Down here. We've got the t-shirt. If we run this, you can't see it, if we run this line across, pretty much in line with the bottom of this girl's hat, so somewhere there. See how I'm just measuring all the time and comparing. She's got hair coming down here, hair going down here, and then we've got her arm. And don't try to draw all the fingers in her hand, just look at the basic shape of the hand. Because you can't see the detail. Something like that. Then in here we've got one knee sticking out, and then here we've got another knee sticking out. It's a bit higher, you know, I think I've made her a bit too small, but it doesn't matter because it's not meant to be a portrait. Let's bring this down a bit. There we go. Give us some room to shadow on this side. Most of that leg, other than the top's in shadow. This leg's got a bit of shadow there, like that. And the arm comes through there. Great. Make this shirt a bit bigger and just bring that around. And then here, there, I'm just going to make her arm look a little bit longer. It's better. And this leg comes down there. And then through here. And we've got this foot. And again, you're not going to see a lot of this. Most of this is in shadow. And then you can just see this other foot on this side. And she's partly in water, so the foot is sort of lost in the water. And this comes, bring this down a bit more. There. That will do. I'm going to make her head just a bit smaller. The hat a bit smaller. It comes down here. And on that side. Great. That'll do her. And then just bring this up a little bit. So the only other thing we need to add to this, so let's put this these waves in. So along the top here, just a broken edge, broken line, and that's that wave in the distance. Give it a slight angle. And then we've got this line here. I'm going to raise it a bit so it's just above her head, and I'm going to give that a bit of a broken edge, and I'm going to have it come down here a little bit. And then here we've got this other line. Let's give it a bit more space. It's going to come through here, there. And again, should bring it up just a bit. So let's get some paint on this painting. So we're going to start by painting this foamy wave first, and then we'll do this section and this section. Let's look at colours. So some paint in here. So I'm starting with a mixture of cobalt blue and a bit of cerulean. So I hope you all have those colours. And that's sort of my basic blue, which I will adjust as I go along anyway. And then in here is just some very weak, oh sorry, let me bring this up. There we go. So this is cobalt blue with some cerulean. This is just very weak, dirty burnt sienna. What I mean by dirty burnt sienna, instead of picking the clean paint up, I'm picking up the dirty paint that falls at the bottom, which is primarily French ultramarine because that's the colour I mix with it most often. So if you're using fresh paint, get some burnt sienna and add a little bit of French ultramarine to it. So, because if you look at the photo, you can see how there's hints of this sort of brown, which is the sand being churned up by the wave as it comes through. And even this blue has a little bit of the sand modifying its reflection. When we look at this blue, what this blue is, it's reflecting the sky. But reflections are always a little bit duller than the object they're reflecting, because the color of the reflection is modified by the color of the water, and in this case the sand underneath the water. So, but primarily we've got these two colors. I'm going to add the tiniest bit of burnt sienna in here. I don't want to dull it too much, and that will give us, you know, a slightly duller version of what's in the sky. So we're going to start by painting this distant wave, and if we look at this wave, let me see if I can get closer to it. If you look at this wave, that's as close as I can go, folks, you'll see at the front of the wave there's lots of white, right? So that's the light hitting the foam, and if you look at it and look at this photo, you can see the light is coming from this direction. That's why you've got these strong shadows heading in this direction. So with this wave, you're going to have some bright white, but then within the wave, you get these shadows. So the front of the wave casts a shadow further into the wave. But that shadow is not totally dark, because while the light coming from the sun is being blocked, there's still light coming from above, from the sky, and so that does light those shadows up a little bit. The darkest shadow is just at the front of the wave, where the light is blocking, the foam is blocking the light from the sun, but also it's acting like an umbrella and blocking the light from the sky. So those little dark bits are quite important. And this mixture here is the colour that I have here with a tiny bit of cobalt turquoise. So I'm going to pick up, let me come back up again. Yeah, I'm going to pick up some of this blue and bring it over here. And then I'm going to add a tiniest bit of turquoise to it, just to give it a slightly greenish tinge. And I'm going to take some of the moisture out. And then we're going to start here. And I'm barely touching the paper, and I'm making sure that I leave lots of white. And not in a regular pattern either. Vary the colour, pick up some different. There we go. Clean the brush, and then in the distance I'm going to use this same blue, bring it over here and add a little bit of French ultramarine to it. Not too much, I don't want to adjust the tone too much, but and again using the side of the brush to create more of this foam coming forward. You know, I'm going to try and bring it down a little bit so you can see it a little bit closer. It's fairly faint, this, so you're not going to see a lot of detail in it. But so by painting the blue, we're creating this wave coming forward. That'll do. And then at that point, I'm going to give it a light spray. Because I want to keep working on it. And but first I'm going to now paint this section. So I'm going to go in with this, quick brush strokes. Might make that a little bit stronger. I'm going to add a bit more cobalt blue, a bit more cerulean, and just a touch of burnt sienna. And again, I want this to be a broken edge, so I'm just going to break that edge up a little bit. Like that. And here there's this foam, so I've got to create some very quick dry brush strokes here. That'll do. I'll give another little spray. And now we can go back in and work on this section. I'm going to pick up a little bit of this burnt sienna. Let me bring this up a bit. Burnt sienna and French ultramarine. Take some moisture out of the brush. And here and there we'll put in some of these darker shadows. Again, you don't want them too regular. And down here you can see a little bit of the brown of the sand colour coming through, so I'm going to put some of that in now and just drop that in with the tip of the brush into the wet paint. And then I'll mix a slightly stronger mixture of French ultramarine into this. And I'm just going to put in a few little just ripples, make them very different in size. And then I'm going to pick up a size 8 brush, So I did that first bit with the 12. Pick up some more of this blue, and I'm going to drag some of this just to connect this with the shadows in the foam a little bit better. There we go. The main thing is don't lose all this white. Once you lose the white, then you really can't get it back. You can get a little bit back with gouache and just lifting, but it's better to leave the white. Now the other thing is these white, the white foam has a reflection. So what we're going to do, just clean your brush, and here and there, just lift some of that. It's not very strong, so you're not going to see a lot of it. But there we go. That'll do. I'm going to give that a tiny little spray. So when do you spray? Before you need to, which means you wait to the point where it's almost too dry. It's probably a bit too late to put the spray in. And the spray just keeps it working. So see how I've left this as a broken edge? Fortunately, it's such a pale passage. That's so when I paint this area, I can keep some of that white in there. Now I'm going to go in quick brush strokes. We want broken edge connection, and I don't want to lose all that white. Now paint around. She's got dark hair, so I can paint into the hair. But I don't want to paint through the hat, either hats, because they're light coloured. There, so paint around it. You have to do this quickly before it dries. This. There we go. And now I'll go back in and pick up some more of this very weak burnt sienna mixture. Drop some in there. Some in here. And there. And again, I'm going to lift some of this moisture because it's a bit too wet. So what I want to do is break that edge up a little bit with some quick dry brush strokes. That'll do. And I'm going to get a little bit of burnt sienna and French ultramarine. Maybe a bit more burnt sienna. And this is that little shadow line. Now this is because this is quite pale, some more of this blue mix. So I'm using this as my little puddle of paint, and then I adjust it. So adding a little bit of French ultramarine to it. Too much. And maybe a bit of turquoise too. I'm just darkening this for it to represent the distant water a little bit better. That's a bit better.